Yeah, what has he done with this Netflix series? He's used his mother to sell it. Could there be a more grotesque exploitation or a more hypocritical one?
They've been damn hopeless at everything. So it seems to me they're resorting to becoming basically a version of the royal Kardashians.
Something about Meghan and Harry's story just doesn't add up anymore. At first, they were the two outsiders breaking free from royal constraints to live on their own terms. But now they're flying private, living in a Montecito mansion, and quietly launching brand after brand while claiming they were cut off financially. So where's all this money really coming from? Because according to multiple insiders, behind the glamour and photo ops lies a financial empire that might not be as clean as it looks. When Meghan and Harry sat down with Oprah, they painted a picture of isolation, betrayal, and financial abandonment. Harry said it plainly. The royal family had cut him off with no support. Meghan added that she had to reach out to old industry contacts just to survive. It was raw, emotional, and for many deeply convincing. People saw them as victims of a cold institution, carving out a new life without royal privilege. But they didn't just survive, they started thriving oddly fast. Within months of stepping down, they were signing multi-million-dollar deals. Suddenly, the couple who claimed to be struggling were living in a $14 million Montecito mansion with private chefs, personal security, and couture closets. And it didn't go unnoticed. Meghan and Harry turned trauma into a product line. Every appearance, every interview, every truth-telling moment added another layer to their public image. And yet, the more polished the image became, the more people began to ask, how? Did they land on their feet so quickly? It's not about disliking Meghan or Harry. It's about asking a simple, uncomfortable question. Does their public narrative match the financial reality? They said they left royalty behind to find freedom, but what they found instead was celebrity wealth, built on a foundation of sympathy. And now, that foundation is starting to look shaky. Once the dust from their royal exit settled, Meghan and Harry wasted no time turning their names into a brand. The deals came quickly. Netflix signed them to a $100 million production agreement. Spotify handed over another estimated $20 million for exclusive podcast content. Add to that a rumored $35 million book deal, high-priced speaking positions, and hushed brand partnerships that were never publicly announced. But while each of these deals sound impressive in headlines, many came with underwhelming results. The Spotify podcast was quietly canceled after just one season, with reports rising that the content didn't meet expectations. Their Netflix deal didn't exactly set records or spawn the kind of media franchise that justifies nine-figure investments. And yet the Sussex lifestyle continued to expand. So where's all this cash actually coming from? That's when the speculation started to shift. Insiders began whispering about quiet side ventures, shell companies, trust funds, silent investors, and corporate arrangements. Not illegal, but certainly enough to raise eyebrows when paired with a public image rooted in victimhood. It's one thing to be rich. It's another to be rich while telling the world you've been left behind. That contradiction is now the fuel behind growing financial scrutiny. As questions about Meghan and Harry's wealth started stacking up, so did the concerns. Financial experts began to weigh in, and according to multiple reports, both US and UK regulatory bodies have started quietly monitoring the Sussex's financial ecosystem. This family's financial system wasn't just about clever tax strategies. It was layers of financial hacks designed to obscure real income and reduce tax liability. And when you're a high-profile public figure who's claimed financial hardship, that contradiction can trigger far more than just PR backlash. But Harry and Meghan aren't just making money, they're moving it across borders. Several of their known business ventures have ties to Delaware and the British Virgin Islands, two of the most common places for financial secrecy. And while using such entities isn't illegal, failing to disclose and pay the correct taxes most certainly is. Some insiders have raised concerns about how charitable donations are being handled. Were donations meant for a cause redirected toward private projects? Were expenses disguised as charitable outreach? This isn't just about Meghan and Harry anymore. It's about the larger machine behind them. Their PR team, financial advisors, and corporate handlers may all play a role in how this unfolds. And if any of them slipped up, it won't just be embarrassing. It could be the start of a very public and very messy collapse. At the heart of Meghan and Harry's entire empire is the very powerful idea that victimhood sells. From their Oprah interview to Harry's memoir Spare, every major media moment they've delivered has been anchored in personal suffering. Meghan's struggles with mental health, Harry's trauma from losing his mother, racism nepotism within the royal institution, press harassment, emotional estrangement, all of it sold as raw truth. But when that narrative becomes a business strategy, it raises a serious ethical and now legal question. Where does the line exist between sharing your pain and exploiting it? Meghan's podcast wasn't just about empowering women, it was about reclaiming her voice from a system that allegedly silenced her. Harry's book didn't just recount his upbringing, it named names, blamed institutions, and torched any bridge with his family. Every piece of content they've produced seems to further cement this identity of being wronged. And they've monetized every angle of that identity. But eventually, people start asking who's really suffering here. The victims or the audience buying their stories? And more to the point, how much of that pain is authentic and how much is strategically used to maximize sales and relevance? The timing alone has raised concerns. Emotional revelations drop right before a major book release. Meghan's wellness pivot begins just as her old activist image loses traction. It's not coincidence, it's strategy. A strategy that, while undeniably effective, is beginning to wear out, and the fallout is already beginning. Critics are calling them out. Former supporters are turning their backs, and some brands, once eager to partner with the Sussexes, are reportedly backing away, concerned about reputational risk. And the more Meghan and Harry lean into the narrative of suffering, the more it begins to feel like a performance. It's not just the critics who are noticing something's off. Even casual observers can feel it. Every step they made seemed choreographed for maximum media impact. Interviews are polished. Social media drops are timed with corporate precision. Their image wasn't evolving, it was being managed and sold. Like a premium product, gone are the charity events and speeches about humanitarianism. And in their place was rumors of skincare lines, cookbook deals, luxury brand collabs, and soft Instagram content with aesthetic perfection. It's classic influencer territory, but coming from someone who once claimed she was retreating from public life. Audiences that once championed their bravery are growing weary. You can't cry financial ruin while living in a gated mansion. You can't claim emotional exhaustion while appearing on every major media platform. The disconnect is starting to alienate even their most loyal supporters. Behind the scenes, brands are reportedly noticing too. Companies that once courted the Sussex name are now allegedly reconsidering partnerships, afraid of being tied to a narrative that feels increasingly unstable. Because when a public figure starts looking unpredictable, it's not just a PR risk, it's a business liability. But the most dangerous part isn't the public turning away, it's the legal world turning its gaze inward. Because when the story starts to feel like a performance, regulators start wondering what else might be hidden behind the headlines and magazine covers. Something far more serious is taking shape, something Meghan and Harry can't control with a PR press release. And unlike the gossip blogs, these probes aren't about opinions. They're about facts, filings, and financial records. According to insiders close to the matter, multiple financial watchdogs are now actively reviewing not just the Sussexes' income sources, but the entire structure of how their empire operates. It starts with the foundations. Several charitable organizations tied to Meghan and Harry are now being quietly examined. Things like unusually vague financial disclosures, large administrative expenses, and donations together seem to suspiciously loop back into their business ventures. When celebrities blend philanthropy with personal branding, the lines can blur fast. Then there are the contracts. Legal experts suggest that if Meghan and Harry misrepresented themselves in any of their business dealings, especially those where their royal status or charitable associations played a role, it could open the door to allegations of fraud or misrepresentation. What's even more concerning is the growing suspicion that some financial decisions may have been made with the intent to avoid taxes or bypass disclosure laws. Again, using shell companies and trusts isn't illegal, but if it's done to hide income or move money in ways that avoid financial regulations, it becomes a serious issue, especially when done under the disguise of transparency and moral high ground. This isn't just a case of being messy with money. It's potentially about building a brand on selective truths. And as financial investigators pull back the truth, what started as a royal escape could quickly become a case study in modern celebrity exploitation. What once felt like a carefully calculated strategy now resembles frantic chaos. And if there's one thing financial scandals have taught us, it's that when the story doesn't match the numbers, the fallout is never just reputational. It's legal. Harry's once sympathetic image is showing collapse. The raw, vulnerable man who spoke openly about grief and family trauma now finds himself holding lawsuits, book promotions, and many awkward public moments. Inconsistencies in his memoir have been flagged. Timelines have been questioned. And while his supporters rushed to defend him, the silence from the royal family has only added to the unease. They're not fighting back because they don't have to. They're letting the facts speak, and that silence is deafening. Meghan, meanwhile, is rapidly expanding her public projects, from rumored product lines to a possible cooking show and lifestyle content empire. But this flurry of new ventures isn't reading as confidence, it's reading as desperation. Investors are wary, former allies are distancing themselves. Some insiders say the couple is burning through capital just to maintain appearances. In life, it's the start of collapse. And now behind closed doors, there's talk that legal teams are preparing for every possible outcome. Tax audits, public filings, subpoenas, maybe even depositions. Because if government agencies get involved at the level people are whispering about, the whole system of theirs could be exposed. No more curated documentaries, no more filtered podcast episodes, just raw documents. This isn't about whether Harry and Meghan are bad people. It's about accountability. They built a brand on transparency, but the deeper this goes, the more it feels like a web of lies. And if the story that launched their empire turns out to be a cover for something sketchier, then they won't just lose public trust, they'll face real consequences. Meghan and Harry promised the world a new kind of royalty, one built on honesty, healing, and independence. But what they've delivered looks more like a brand fueled by drama, exploited pain, and now possible deception. The lavish lifestyle, the endless ventures, the emotional marketing, it all worked until the numbers stopped adding up. Now, with investigators circling and public patience growing thin, the question isn't whether they've gone too far, it's whether they can come back from it. Because when your empire is built on transparency, and the truth doesn't match the story you've been telling, you don't just risk losing your audience, you risk losing everything. And this time, no deal in the industry can rewrite what the evidence reveals.